Hello everybody and welcome to Tiny Time Big Results. I'm Yasmin Boraji, and in this episode of this podcast and video I am not doing a solo like I normally do. I've got a guest expert and a new friend of mine which I was really keen to get onto the show. So big welcome first of all to Lynda Shaw. Hello Lynda.
Hiya, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you keeping?
That is beautiful. The sun is shining and I'm going to get some fresh air later, so it's all good.
Excellent. Now I'm going to do, this is my lovely, see, this is what happens. Hold on. The beauty of technology. Oh. My webcam likes to switch itself off sometimes, so which is great fun. So you might see me pop off and then I'll be back again. Anyway, Lynda and I met recently. I'm going to do that thing where I'm looking at you, but I should look at the camera. Lynda and I met recently at a Professional Speaking Association event here in Ireland, in Dublin. We're both members and we struck up a conversation. We're having a great chat. And so I was really keen to get Lynda on the show today because Lynda specialises in the brain. And one of the things that I've been really conscious of in my business journey is about how much mindset and how much your own programming affects your level of success. You know, I think you can have all the strategies in the world, you can have all the tactics in the world, but when what's going on for you internally is not in alignment, it's not working, then it can really sabotage. And I'm sure, you know, you're probably all familiar with the whole idea of imposter syndrome and self-sabotage and all the things that you do to yourself that actually stops you from succeeding. And that was why I was really keen to get Lynda on, because to get the scientific view of, well, this is what happens, you know, so it's not that there's anything wrong with you, but to be able to kind of figure out, well, how can we get around it, or how can we work with our brain and our body rather than fighting it all the time. Lynda, do you want to, I suppose, introduce yourself briefly to kind of just let people know what it is that you do? And then we can just take it from there. You know what I'm like. I just like to chat and kind of just, it's a conversation, and it'd be really good just to kind of get your thoughts on what I've been talking about so far.
Okay, well, I'm a neuroscientist with a background in psychology, and also I've also got a degree in psychology and social anthropology as well. So I am driven, always have been driven, to understand why people do what they do.
Lynda, it's very hard to hear you.
Sorry, should I be to put some headphones on?
Yeah, I might do. Just, it's really hard to hear. I told you were softly spoken.
Okay, I tell you what, nobody in my family say I'm softly spoken. They all go, oh my God, mother. You get that, mother?
Oh, mom.
Mom. When my guys were small, I used to have a musical toilet seat. It said mum every time I sat on it.
That's brilliant. Because they do find you when you're sat on the toilet. You know, and then they just come and look at you. And then I was like, can I have some privacy? My two older ones now are adamant about wanting privacy in the bathroom. And I said, you don't give me any privacy. You all just come in and look at me, which is very disconcerting.
I love that. Is that any better? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit better. Should you say a bit more?
Okay, let me turn volumes up, everything up. I've turned everything up and that way around. That to be better.
There we go.
There we are. Is that any better?
Let's give that a go. Yeah.
Let's give that a go. Okay, so who am I? I'm a neuroscientist with psychology and social anthropology in my background. My biggest interest is understanding unconscious processing. So that's what my doctorate's about, is unconscious processing of emotions. So I want to know what people are saying without using words. I want to understand how to read people better so that we communicate better. So my core is always about communication, smooth communication, to be honest with you. Companies, in corporates as well as smaller companies, and we talk about communication issues, what their purpose is. We talk about what drives them. There's a big psychology thing going on at the moment about legacy. What is it you actually want to leave behind? What are you known for? And that if you can identify that, that's fantastic for business. So that's what I do, and it's all wrapped up with emotion. And I must tell you, when I first started back, when I left academia and went back into business, because I was in the business world before I studied for my doctorate, I couldn't believe how hard it was for me to talk about emotion in business.
Wow.
All that pink fluffy stuff, we don't want to talk about all that stuff. I mean, no, you don't make a decision without an emotional response, underlying emotional response that you're not even aware of. So, but recently, in the last 2 or 3, maybe 4 years, businesses are going, actually, Lynda, come and talk to us about this emotion thing.
That's really interesting because, you know, as I suppose as business owners, we know that, you know, our customers, our clients buy based on emotion, and then they back it up with a lot of logic, you know, like, oh yeah, this is a good reason to buy this and that, you know, because we make so many of our decisions based on emotion. And even when you think about, I suppose, marketing using the storytelling method, you know, it's all about evoking that emotion in people of, you know, do you remember when, you know, in the 80s you used to play outside all day long, and, you know, so it creates a feeling in people. And that's really what you're talking about. It's, you know, how do you bring that into what you're doing in your business? And I love what you're talking about, the legacy piece, because actually the Amazon guy just delivered one of my new books, and books are my weakness, I'm afraid. And it's actually called Perennial Seller, and it's called The Art of Making and Marketing Work That Lasts. And I suppose that's kind of what you're talking about as well, is, you know, what's that legacy that what's your business doing? You know, what's the purpose of your business?
I think, well, that's one of my, you get around to one of the tips actually, in that people spend a lot of money, corporates spend a huge amount of money and time working on their mission statement. Their strapline. I've got your business card here. I mean, it's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Tiny time, big results. Sorry, I'm playing trombone now, and I've left my glasses in the other room. But your strapline is excellent because it says what it does on the tin. It's really, really clear. But for me, one of the most important things of the mission statement, and trust me here, I have never seen so many rubbish mission statements in the biggest companies in my life, and they have all this investment trying to get it right. But if you look at something like Disney World, their mission statement is, I've got written down here, the happiest place on earth. They've been using that one for years. So if you are somebody like Disney, you're going on the rides, you would expect them to be selling how safe they are, health and safety, all that sort of stuff. They don't. They sell an emotion.
But yeah, a parent wants to know that it's going to be safe, but they're thinking about the memories that they're going to be creating. You know, like when we took we didn't have the third at the time, but we took our two to Legoland, you know, and they're always talking about Legoland. When we went to Legoland, and you remember when we did this in Legoland, and, you know, it's just all the feelings that it brings up. And yeah, we were kind of like, making sure everything was safe. But like that, I like that. It's what's the emotion that it's creating.
Absolutely. And that's why in business it's really, really important to work out what is the one emotion you want your people to actually feel when they think about your product. What is it you're trying to evoke in them? What is it?
I might get you just to speak up a little bit, Lynda. I'm losing you.
I don't know what's going on here, but I'm roaring very loud.
And it's really good stuff, and I want to make sure that people can hear you.
So you just want to work on the one key emotion that you want your clients and customers to feel. What is it? Do you want them to feel that I don't know, that they're safe? If you went into a funeral parlor, if you had to go to you went to a funeral parlor because one of your loved ones had just died, what is it you want to feel when you go into that funeral parlor? You want to feel that you can trust them. You want to feel that you're safe. They can do all this stuff because you're in such a state.
Yeah.
You can't get your head around anything else. You just want to feel that you're in safe hands. Just go and do, and I'll turn up. And that, so this is that is key, absolutely key, when you are looking at a mission statement or your strapline or your core message. Your core message needs to evoke that one emotion that is the most valuable to your clients and customers, and the most valuable to you as well. But there is another secret here. If you've evoked this emotion because you feel really passionate about what you do, that's fantastic. But you mustn't let emotion control your business. So
Great point.
yeah, you want it. Yeah, go for that passion. If that's what drives you, but that's the core of your being, go for it. But make it the core of your being, not your driver. You're the driver.
Mm.
Okay. So you want to drive it. So basically, once you've worked out the emotion that you want to evoke in your people, for them to lather up into this wonderful state of whatever it is that you're offering, you then want to sit back a bit and take the emotion out for yourself, so
Mm.
that you are more strategic in the way that you develop your business. So you're not driven by this headless chicken. Oh my God, this is such a wonderful product. I could do this, could do that. That's what I do. But you really want to gather that information, gather that intelligence, and then sit back, right, okay, I take the emotion out. It's the core of who I am. It's the core of where I want to be. It might be the legacy I want to leave, maybe, maybe not. But basically, from then on, I'm going to have this strategy in line and processes in place so that I can, if you need to find stuff.
Losing you again, Lynda. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with the sound there.
So you need to find things that you can do.
I think the closer that you are to the screen, it really helps.
Okay. I'm there. Okay. So basically that's it. So find the emotion, the core emotion that your business is about. Convey that to your clients and customers, because that's what you want them to feel when they think of you and your product or service. But then take the emotion out for yourself so that you're very much in the driving seat and driving the business forward in a strategic way.
And I love that as well, Lynda, because it gets me thinking of when I've spoken to, people who I've met at networking, or clients, or, prospects, during sales conversations. And, we talk about what it is that they're passionate about. But then it's like all their business acumen goes straight out the window. It's because, common question that I often ask people, like, so who does your work, really serve? Who is your ideal client? I can work with everybody. And it's like, no, but, to really gain traction, you need to make sure that you're very clear and, you have a narrow definition of who your ideal client is so that you can target that person really well. But I can work with everybody. And, I don't want to say no to this, that, and the other. And for me, this is quite an important thing for business owners, is if you're not clear on who you're targeting, whether it's, if it's weight loss, I use the example of weight loss, weight loss as a 20-something is very different than if you're trying to lose weight, if you've had babies and you're now, in your late 40s, because the hormones are all different. And, so if you have a very clear message that is aimed at that 20-something, then the 40-something is going to be like, well, that's not going to work for me because, I'm in a different stage of life. And the more you hone and refine what that vision looks like, then your marketing is so much more punchy, it's so much more compelling. The right people find you, and it's not a struggle, but it's that sense of, like you say, if the passion becomes overriding, and then it drives everything that they're doing, instead of them being the driver and saying, actually, I'm going to be strategic about this and make sure that I'm directing at the right person. And so I suppose one of the questions that I have is that when you're looking at your work with, in neuroscience, I suppose what makes you kind of, so passionate about helping businesses to understand their legacy and kind of getting to the core of that? Like, what part of neuroscience has that played, to kind of get you so passionate about that now?
Well, let me tell you a story, one of the core stories that I've got. Many years ago, I had a meeting in Fulham in London, and I had to park my car one side of a park. I walked through the park to get to where the meeting was, and as I did so, there was a man asleep on the bench, and he was filthy dirty. He was sound asleep. He had his hands huddled under his armpits. He was really cold. It was autumn. All the dew was lying on the surface of his skin and his coat, and he had a couple of carrier bags underneath the bench. So clearly he was a homeless man. He was sound asleep. I went out of the park and I had my business meeting. I came back in the park and I walked past the sleeping man a second time. He was still sound asleep. I got to the gate to where my car was parked, and I stopped. I turned around and I went back past the man a third time. I went out to where the office was, where I had my meeting, and I found a supermarket, and I bought a sandwich and an orange juice. I came back in the park for the fourth time. I went up to this man. I very quietly approached him because I didn't want him to wake up. And I put down by his head the orange juice and the sandwich. I then walked away and I left, and I didn't talk about that for years. But I do now to demonstrate a point. The point is, for days afterwards, I could do no wrong with work. My business was on a roll. I was just going for it. I was speaking, I was running courses, I was writing copy, I was doing so much that I was on a roll. It was absolutely fabulous. So when I studied neuroscience, I questioned this, and I realized now that what I did is I put my brain in the best possible state to be effective and efficient. And the best way of doing that is through kindness, generosity, and altruism.
Oh, okay.
Something for someone else without expecting anything in return, we put our brain in an optimal state. And the reason that is because we stimulate something called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is actually a gas. It's a neurogas and permeates blood vessels really, really fast. It's actually in heart disease medication, so because it opens up vessels so that you get more oxygen around the body. And it moves faster than even neurotransmitters. It goes all over the place. Now, the delicious thing about nitric oxide is we can stimulate it with being kind, generous, and altruistic. But it also regulates cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Now, I know what it's like as a female when you have got children, when you have got a partner who might be having troubles, when you've got parents who need your help a little bit more than they used to. There's all sorts of things that go on. And when you're trying to run a business, now I'm not trying to be gender specific here. This is for men as well. But when you have got so much else to juggle in life, it can be really stressful. Even one of your children's sports days can send you over the edge, especially if they're off sick. It's like, oh no, I've got this to do, I've got that to do, I can't handle this. Really, really stressful. Really stressful, and it will harm your business, because what happens is with cortisol, when it's raging through the system for any length of time, it dampens down serotonin and dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitters. So we start to feel all sorts of things go wrong. But when we are doing being the human beings we know we should be, by being kind and generous and altruistic, all of that settles down. All of it works at the absolute peak it can work. So, and not only that, not only do you put yourself in such an effective state, but you also have such a good relationship with your clients and customers, because you're happier, you're being efficient, you're being kind, you're offering them information for free and not expecting anything in return. Okay, you can argue that it's part of your marketing strategy, but nevertheless, what they see is that you are not take, me, that you're thinking of them, you're customer centric.
Okay.
By being like that, you can't help but put your brain in an effective state.
Okay, so for example, using that example of, if you've got, like family, and you're thinking, okay, but I'm already doing so much for everybody else, so I'm being kind, I'm being generous, maybe not necessarily altruistic, but, I'm doing all of those things, and that actually is stressing me out rather than calming me down. So how does that work?
First of all, you can't play victim. Do not play victim, this martyr thing. We are really good at doing victim sometimes. Oh, yeah. Nobody says thank you that I've just tidied 3 bedrooms. Nobody says thank you that I've emptied the dishwasher 50 times this week. Nobody says thank you. First of all, get a roster and get the kids to do the dishwasher. Let's get sensible here. Let's delegate is a great word. But equally, that kindness is also about oneself. You've got to put yourself on that kindness list. So actually, put yourself somewhere on, as a priority, actually. We all know the analogy of the oxygen mask on an aeroplane. You put it for a child. We all know that one. And it's the same. And we forget because we're all so busy running. You've really got to put yourself on the list who you're going to be kind to.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you just said that, Lynda, because I think that's the one thing that we tend to forget the quickest, because everyone else's demands are all piling on top of you, and looking after yourself and being kind to yourself, so, okay, maybe that sales call didn't go as well as you'd hoped. I know I'm terrible for I'll go whirring around in my head over and over and over again. I think I could have done this better, and I could have done this better. And you're thinking, but it's happened. You know, you can't go back and change it, and it just makes you so cranky. It makes me really cranky anyway when I get stressed. And that for me is it's like in the morning when I wake up, I like try and wake up at least an hour, or sometimes it depends on what time I went to bed, but if I try and get up an hour before everybody else gets up, that's my time for me just to be able to kind of ground myself and get ready for the day. And if that doesn't happen, you know, you like that, you just feel like as if you're being, you know, thrown around in loads and loads of different directions, and it can be really stressful then.
It's so stressful. And also you've got to be careful that you don't waste your day.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have this day, once tonight comes, this day will never come back. It's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and I suppose with social media, you know I'm just as bad, you know, where you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and you're like thinking, what am I doing?
Oh, Facebook. I know. Stupid, isn't it?
I know. So I suppose, you know, if we want our brain to work for us, you know, and help us to be the best that we can be. Like, I mean, like I say, in Tiny Time, Big Results, it's all about trying to get things done in 20 hours a week or less. And so we've got limited time, and that's something that I'm very conscious of. Like something that I do every day is I have a little tracker just to remind myself, or just to kind of log what I've actually been able to achieve today. Because there'll be days when you think I've done nothing, and you're like, actually, look, you did all of this, you know, so give yourself a, you know, again, you know, don't give yourself a hard time. But how can we make our brain our friend? Because I think, and I don't know whether you've come across this, Lynda, is, you know, our lizard brain, our reptilian brain, our critter brain, whatever you want to call it, it can be such a dominant part of life when you're self-employed, because you're always, you know, you're looking for that safety, you're looking for that security of where's the next client, where's the next, you know, payment coming through. Like how can, and that's one of the big challenges, is how can we make our brain our friend and help us to actually be more efficient and effective, and, you know, make this a more pleasurable experience. You know, so be kind, be generous. That's one of your really great tips. What else can we do?
We need to look after it. We need to feed it, nurture it. And the way we do that is to give it space. It needs to sleep. It needs a lot of sleep. We sometimes, when you've got so many things going on, especially if you have young babies in the house, or, you know, lack of sleep is the enemy.
Yeah.
Brain does not, it becomes toxic. You need to make sure you get enough sleep. If you're not, because of stuff going on in the house, you know, the colic or teething or all of those other things, then take advantage and give yourself time during the day to take a nap.
Yeah.
You've got to look after your brain. You've got to feed it properly. You've got to feed it with decent food. We all know this. Hydrate. Oh my goodness. How much water are you really drinking? Stuff that we all know is actually real. It is real. It's not like, oh yeah, I've just read that in a magazine for the 50th time. It is real. If you want your brain to be your friend and to work well for you, you've got to nurture it. You've got to give it sustenance. You've got to give it rest. You've got to hydrate it. And one of the things, and also physical exercise. If you haven't got time to go to the gym, then go for a walk. You know, park your car a little bit further than you should do for your business meeting. Take the stairs, not the lift. You know, all of that. You know, make everything a habit. Because if you don't, things will go wrong and your business will fail.
Yeah. And my granny, my dad's mum, she's in her late 80s now, but she has very bad Alzheimer's, you know, and I think, you know, like she's deteriorated so much over the last few years, and my parents look after her primarily, and just seeing the impact of basically someone's brain just completely falling apart, and, you know, she's not able to do anything. And, you know, it's so sad to see. But it just makes me so mindful of, you know, God, this brain is so precious, and, you know, you really do have to look after it. And like that, I love the fact that with sleep, I mean, obviously as a young parent, my 18-month-old is teething at the moment, and he sleeps with me. And so, you know, it's just like, okay, just get some sleep. But like that, you know, you have to, I don't know whether you ever hear, like, you know, when entrepreneurs are always going on about the hustle, you know, and it's like, you know, you're working late and you're working really long hours, and, you know, and I just, for me, that just doesn't feel right, because I was like, well, that's not sustainable. You know, I don't want my business to just only work for a couple of years and then I'm burnt out and it doesn't work anymore. I want it to be, you know, here for the long haul. So doing, you know, the basics, you know, we know this, get a good night's sleep.
You know, meditation, and if people say, I tried it once and it didn't work. Hello, it'll take a little bit more than once, for something. People meditate for years and years and years, and it doesn't. My father used to say, everybody needs a quiet time. He didn't talk about meditation or anything like that, but we do need a time where, I don't know, you're staring out of the window, watching the rain fall. That will stimulate nitric oxide. If you're listening to a baby laugh, and especially if it's your baby, that will stimulate all the feel-good neurotransmitters. If you're sitting around your kitchen table having a glass of wine with your mates, that will stimulate neurotransmitters, the good feel-good neurotransmitters. Obviously, not the bottle of wine.
Yeah.
But those things, those basic needs that we have, and that is the only way that you're going to sustain it. It's not self-indulgent.
No.
It is your safety net, so that you actually can create a really decent sized business.
Fantastic. 'Cause I know like my baby's always with me, like the other two are in preschool and school, but he's always with me. So a lot of times, he'll just be playing or, just kind of moving and mooching around. And every so often when I finish something, we'll just go jump onto the bed and we'll just tickle, and it's so great just to be able to have that downtime. And that makes me appreciative of the fact that I can do that in my business. It's like, okay, take a break, let's go tickle. And, and he gets then obviously that time. And it's the little things like that. I think that it's, I think sometimes we make it bigger than it needs to be. And it's like, what are the little things that we can do that make a big impact? Like that, glass of water.
In fact, why don't you write a blog called Tickle Time?
Tickle Time. The power of tickle time.
Brilliant, tickle time.
Yeah.
But what you're doing there is huge for your baby, absolutely huge. Not just because mum is paying attention, but because the communication that you're doing, you're wiring his brain to be much stronger than if you didn't. I mean, there's a lot of research around orphanages where the children aren't cuddled or rocked or nurtured at all, and they're actually developmentally not up to par, but also physically smaller.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, it's basic stuff.
Yeah.
That we think, oh yeah, tomorrow. No, there might not be a tomorrow.
Yeah. And yeah, because like at the moment I'm writing my book. I was like, I've been saying this for so many years. I was like, I'm writing my book. I am writing my book. And that's one of the things that I often hear sometimes, I often hear people saying to me like, oh yeah, the 20-hour week, I'd love that. Yeah, but that's not going to happen. Maybe in a few years' time. And that's what I get really passionate about. Well, I want to do it now because my kids are so young, and otherwise I'm going to look back and then regret the time that, I could have spent with them. And so, designing a business that fits in the time that you have right now, because the reality is we don't know that we have tomorrow. None of us have those guarantees. It's a bit like when people are, kind of working and then saying, well, when I retire, it's like nobody has those guarantees. So why don't we enjoy life right now, the way that we want to live life? And, and I suppose, and I get a bit woo-woo about, manifesting and kind of living the best life that you have. And, if you want to bring all of these great things in your life, you have to behave as if they're already here, because that's more likely that it'll be attracted to you than if you're already living that life. So you think, okay, well, I want to have a life that's, that's flexible and I have time with my family. Well, do it. And then you create more of that.
And also, I always think that when people talk about lifestyle businesses, a lot of people dismiss that as being, oh, small pocket money. It's not.
No.
People who are earning 7 figures with a lifestyle business. Thank you very much.
We lost you there, Lynda. Can you?
Sorry, I know people who are earning 7 figures who have got a lifestyle business. Yeah. So there is nothing small fry about having a lifestyle business. It means that you are living your life as you want to in your working day and outside of your working day.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it means that your business is like you encourage with your clients and you do for yourself, is you've got a 20-hour week so that you can be with your children, that's a lifestyle business, and it's an extremely good method. It's an extremely good way of earning a living.
Yeah.
Not small fry. It can develop and grow. So, but it can be anything. Some people I know love getting on an aeroplane. So their business is speaking abroad and all around the world and stuff like that. Other people would hate that, absolutely hate it, because they couldn't bear being on an airplane for that length of time. You know, a week you're up and down like a yo-yo. But if it suits you and what you want to do, and you can make a decent living out of it, that's a lifestyle business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Working, isn't it?
And it's a quality of life. I think that's essentially, it boils down to the quality of life that you want. And I was saying this to a friend of mine yesterday, that, you know, like sometimes I'll be like, oh God, I wish I could get more done and I want to do more in my business, but my kids are so young, and there's a time and a season for everything, you know. So whilst they're young, they need me, and, you know, and now I'm happy to do that. And then as they get older and when they're all in school, I'll have a lot more time, and that'll be great. That'll be fine. But I'm not going to wish away the time that I have now, you know, going, oh, well, when I have more time. So it's like, okay, well, I'll do what I can right now.
I tell you what, you know what? There is also a psychology way of looking at this. Is that when you have given yourself, I don't know how you chop your day up. Is it 4 hours a day? I don't know how you do it.
I tend to work in the morning, from 10 till 12 is typically my time. And then I have to go and pick up my daughter, and then kind of maybe get a little bit done in the afternoon before I pick up my son at 3.
What you do between 10 and 12, you focus.
Yeah.
You really
serious.
Focus.
Yeah.
There's a lot coming out of Scandinavia at the moment. Some very good stuff going on where they are doing shorter working days. In Finland, where they're doing 6 hours a days now. You go to the States and people are doing 12, 14-hour days regularly with very little time for holidays.
Yeah.
So, but in Finland and other parts of the world, they have got shorter days coming in. They've got more holidays, and guess what? They are just as productive as our friends who are doing the long days.
Yeah.
Because they focus more. And also, what you're doing is you're giving the brain a rest. You're giving this sort of incubation time. So, for instance, if you have an idea for your business and you're working at it, really, really focusing, and you're working on this idea, if you give yourself time away from it, where you're not thinking about that, where you might be going for the school pickup run, or you might be walking, or you might be going to the gym, whatever you're doing, where you're not thinking of it, that's an incubation time where the brain is actually settling and you get more ideas, developing much more, so that you can actually, I can see so that you this incubation period is fantastic. Those ideas you've had. Hello. Oh my goodness, you're like your mummy.
For those of you that are listening on the podcast, my baby just walked in, and this is the reality he does. He likes to pop in whenever he gets a chance. My husband is in the house, but he goes, don't go in there, she's recording. But obviously he's 18 months. He doesn't know that.
Yeah, that's right. You wanted to be on it. Did you helping mummy?
Yeah, he's very good on the videos. He does a lot of my Facebook lives with me. But and I think that you're absolutely right in that focus for the few hours, like I can get so much more done. And even when I was in corporate, you know, how much time do we all waste just by standing around chatting? And, you know, when you think about if you had a half-day holiday, you'd probably get far more done in the 4 hours before you went off on holiday. And, you know, rather than the whole day there. It's really interesting.
If you really focus on your 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever you've got, if you cut it down into bite-sized times, it will be much more efficient. Just even if you say to yourself, look, I'm going to get 90 minutes of this, or 85.7 minutes, I am going to be doing this, this, and this, and then I'm going to make a cup of coffee. And then I'll make those couple of calls, and then I'm going back, and for the next 63 and a half minutes, I'm going to do this, this, and this. You'll get it done.
Yeah, you do. And I think that sometimes we tell ourselves, like, you know, I work so many long hours, and the reality is that a lot of that probably was scrolling on Facebook, and a lot of it was scrolling on the internet and looking at what everyone else is doing. And one of my kind of favorite things is, it doesn't always happen, but it's being able to batch your work, so that if you're doing all admin things, that you do that in one day, because then you're in that zone. But if you're trying to do creative work, if you're trying to write, if you're trying to, you know, film videos and things like that, try and do them all in one go, because then that creative energy and the juices are flowing, and it's really hard.
And remember this incubation period.
Yeah,
I'm actually a great believer in incubation. When you've got an idea, and you want it, you rather than hammer away at it, keep going, leave it.
Yeah.
Just walk away, and then come back to it, and you will find that you're not just refreshed, but your brain subconsciously has been working on it, and it actually looks much better than it did before you walked away.
Yeah, I always get great ideas when I'm out walking, or if I've gone on the trampoline in the garden with the kids. And then it literally is just letting your brain get on with it, because we assume that we have all the answers, and actually your subconscious is sitting there going, leave it with me.
Yeah.
I've got this. I've got this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what, Lynda? We could talk for ages and ages and ages. I'm really conscious of time, and all my tiny timers are saying, enough, Yasmin, we haven't got time for this. But Lynda, if this has been such an interesting conversation, like I said, we could talk for a lot longer. For those of my listeners who are interested in finding out more about you and the work that you do, how could we find out more?
I'm www.drlyndashaw.com. That's DRLYNDASHAW. And if you want to email me, I'm Lynda@drlyndashaw.com. Happy to answer any questions if you have them. Always happy to connect with new people. Or you can get me on 07967271274. That's my phone number. Always happy to speak to anybody who wants to make an alliance, association, find out information, whatever. Happy.
Excellent. And that's a UK number. So if you're outside of the UK, then it's 0044 and add the number. Fantastic. Lynda, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I apologize for the baby. He's now in his favorite place, feeding.
No worries at all. Lovely speaking with you.
And take care. And thank you everybody for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and also check out yasminborji.com for more hints and tips on how to create your 20-hour week business. I look forward to seeing you the next time. Take care.